You say introduce it your way, and then you just interrupt.
Because you back-juiced it. You talked about it as if everyone had already listened to it.
You out-juiced
When I said
it.
do it your way, I didn't mean do it wrongly.
Welcome. We are Neil,
Luke,
And Dave.
340-somethings, reminiscing on the runners and riders of 90s guitar music.
we look at the bands who soundtracked our youth on both sides of the pond and interview some of our heroes from the bands that defined a generation.
You'll hear about the good, the bad, and the ugly of 90s guitar music.
This podcast is Stupid and Contagious. Welcome to episode 4 of the Stupid and Contagious podcast. Thanks to all of you who have tuned into the other episodes so far. Really pleased with how it's going. Getting some nice listener figures, so thanks very much. So this episode we are going to be talking about levelers, and we've got an interview with Jeremy Cunningham. First of all, before we start, so after the Faith No More episode we did last time, I went and had a good listen to that Soul Invictus. It's fucking brilliant.
It's really good, right?
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
there's
that
also
track, Motherfucker, it's a standout, but the whole record is good, right?
it's really good. And there's also they did a BBC session at Maida Vale, which is worth checking out, where they played, I think, 3 songs off that. It's really good, with little interviews in between, so that's worth having a look. I just thought I'd say because I'd listened to that album before, but I hadn't given it a really good listen for a while, and it's fucking good. Right, so on with Levelers. Is it Levelers or The Levelers? Let's start with that.
I think just Levelers. There's no, looking at the album cover.
It is Levelers, isn't it? It's just Levelers.
It's just Levelers, yeah.
All right, we'll go with Levelers. I think that's right. Anyway, can you tell us a little bit about the history of Levelers?
Okay, well, as you know, I like to categorise bands because that's the kind of nerd I am. What would you call them?
That's
Folk rock, anarcho indie.
I like that. Anarcho indie. We'll go with that.
All right, anarcho indie. Formed in Brighton, our neck of the woods, in 1988 by just Mark and Jeremy at the start. Founding members, apparently meeting in the Eagle pub, which is very, very near where I used to live, which is great. Right. And they self-released quite a few kind of singles and EPs, or put them out on little tiny Friends labels and stuff like that. Started getting a lot of interest in Brighton, signed to a slightly bigger kind of indie, put out their first album in 1990, which was a weapon called The Word. Well, they had a pretty strong political outlook right from the beginning. We could hear Jeremy talk about it in the interview, how that was a big part of how him and Mark started writing songs together, right at the beginning, making sure they had something to say. They kind of played the free festival circuit and squats and traveller camps and stuff like that in the beginning, kind of building up their fan base. You will hear about it in the interview, but they were definitely part of that movement. I think Jeremy was saying he lived in his truck for a good while.
Yeah, he talks about that a bit. Yeah,
I don't know if people remember these kind of they were called New Age travellers or crusties at the time.
I mean, that was quite a big thing for us as young teens. I think I had many a sort of argument with my parents about how they should be allowed to do what they want. My parents were obviously of the opposing opinion.
I mean, you looked the part more than any of us, I think, Neil. You had the that hooded the hooded top with the what do you call those?
I like it. It was it's like a Jesus top, wasn't it?
Yeah. And you had the crazy pants, which you talked about in episode 1 that came
when
off
they get pulled off.
True. Yeah, that's right. They did get ripped off when I crowd surfed. I was into all that. Yeah, I was into all that. I think I had orange hair.
I think you pulled it off. I think you got away with it. Yeah.
Don't know about that. But
I think we romanticised that life a lot. I remember thinking how cool it would be to live that life.
Yeah, I think that was part of it, wasn't it? We were teenagers. These people were living life on the road. It looked quite appealing.
quite romantic. We wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes, but yeah.
No. No. No, we wouldn't.
All right, so first album, not called Blind Faith, Neil, called A Weapon Called the Word, released in 1990.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Before we started the interview, I was going to say to everyone, see how many times you can count me get the name of the first album wrong.
Oh man, it's all good. It's on the album. It's close enough, you know.
At least it's a song. At least it's one of theirs.
And it's on that album, so it's fair.
Yeah.
It's fair. And their second album was kind of the one that kind of blew up. Level in the Land came out in 1991, so just a year later. Basically, seemed to be, especially chock full of like great protest songs, right?
We speak about this a little bit in the interview, but I remember your brother introduced us to the Levellers, Samuel Lawrence.
Well, I listened back to the interview. I have absolutely no memory of that at all.
I do. I remember.
I believe you.
I vividly remember him coming back from Sheffield Uni and putting it on, and we were like, "What the fuck's this?" Because it's I hadn't really heard any music like that before. And he's like,
With a fiddle.
They're from Brighton. Yeah.
I have no memory of that, but I mean, it totally checks out. It makes sense, right?
The timeline fits. Timeline fits. In the interview, Jeremy talks about those gigs at Sheffield Uni. So
well, we can talk about that later because that's quite interesting. I thought.
Yeah, I think that was our first intro to Levellers. But then at school, I remember all the cool kids had a weapon called the Word. Got the name right.
Oh, really? Even before Level in the Land?
Yeah, I remember people having weapon called the Word. They were the same people that listened to Neds Atomic Dustbin and stuff like that. They became the cool band sort of thing.
So that second album, Level in the Land, I was a bit surprised. It only got to number 14 in the charts, which is not bad, I guess, right?
No, not bad.
Well,
I guess it got bigger as the album was out for longer. It sort of took on a life.
Well, that's what it peaked at, but yeah. But they kept their ethics according to Discogs. Like early copies of the album had like a sticker saying, "Beat the recession, expect to pay no more than $5.99." Like keeping a price cap on it to keep their ethics, which is cool.
Right, yeah.
Third album, The Levellers, kind of a bit of a darker album. Got to number 2, surprisingly.
Number 1. I think you're wrong.
No, I'm not. It got to number 2. But their fourth album, which was called Zeitgeist, got to number 1 in 1995.
I like that Levellers album, the one before.
So do I.
Levellers, the self-titled one. That's got like 100 Years of Solitude. Yeah, Julia, Garden, 100 Years of Solitude.
It too.
Belarus, great song. All of those.
Yeah.
I bought that album on our trip back from Paynton.
Like that's one of my big memories of the Levellers is the trip back to Paynton. We had to get off at some like little small town stop. We were walking around the town with a cassette player hoisted onto the shoulder, like where it's like in the hip hoppers in the Bronx or something, and blasting out the Levellers, just kind of swaggering around the town. I mean, did you remember that?
That's right.
No memory of that whatsoever.
Come on, Dave. You were the one strutting the most, man.
Well, Levellers were definitely a soundtrack to that. Our first holiday, that was. Our first holiday away from parents.
To Paynton.
So,
That and Two Princes.
yeah, that was out at the time.
That was on Debonair all the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Debonair was brilliant.
It was good, wasn't it?
Still going.
It was good.
Shout out to Debonair if they're listening.
Yeah.
It would just be bought by heart now, isn't it? They just
Cool.
swallowed every local station in the country.
Have they?
Yeah, there's no Southern sound anymore. Ambrose Hardcut.
Yeah, man.
Remember Ambrose
Good
Hardcut?
stuff. Sure. Everyone does. 94, the famous Glastonbury performance that you talk about with Jeremy, biggest ever Glastonbury crowd, kind of
Have you seen
the
it?
peak of their popularity. Yeah, I had a look at it
It's
actually this week.
fucking
Yeah.
nuts. There's people hanging off like he says in the interview, there's people hanging off the sound tower and stuff. It's just mental. Yeah, 350,000 people. I think most headline acts get lucky if they get 100,000 now.
That's still a lot.
Right.
It's still a fucking lot of people, but 350,000 people is just madness.
But Levellers so synonymous with Glastonbury, isn't it? Just feels like that was the Glastonbury band of that time.
Glastonbury was a little bit different back then. That was still back in the time when you could break in, and a lot of people did.
Yeah.
Can't do that no more.
Also, around this time, they bought like a headquarters. They bought like this derelict factory in Brighton, and they're still using it. Like, I mean, he made like a casual reference to it in the interview. The Metway it's called.
Metway.
The Metway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where he goes to do all his art and stuff.
It's a studio
And
as well, though, isn't it?
It's a studio. It's a recording studio. I think it's like a headquarters for like different collectives, and people get together and do like political stuff and things. And they did that right in like 93, 94, I think, and it's still going, and they still own it, which I think it's really cool.
I was just going to ask, Levelers. The name is just because of the level in Brighton, right?
No, Dave,
Convinced it
Dave,
was.
enlighten him, please.
But it's some cultural group, wasn't it? Equality. It's about equality, isn't it?
In the time of like Oliver Cromwell and stuff, and they were basically arguing against wealth inequality and stuff like that.
That makes more sense.
I think he mentioned the band New Model Army. I think they were like part of the New Model Army at that time. But yeah, it's like a historical group.
Nothing to
basically.
do with the level in Brighton.
Absolutely
Well,
nothing to do with
I
the
mean, it
level.
doesn't
Nobody
hurt to
has
have-
ever thought that, ever.
Well,
I
it probably crossed their mind that it.
It's a double meaning.
It's not. Nobody's ever... No.
Anyway,
Let's say
cleared
it
that
is.
one up.
Let's say
I
it
don't
is.
know. I don't know.
So yeah, basically they've been going ever since. They also they set up their own festival in 2003, Beautiful Days.
Beautiful Days,
Still going.
yeah. Really good.
Last month they had Suede and Primal Scream there and stuff. So it's like a proper,
It's a really good little
apparently it's like a
festival.
really
Haven't
nice
been, but-
family-friendly kind of thing. They've just released their 13th studio album, and they've never gone away. They've never broken up. Yeah, they just kept going.
Yeah, no, we spoke to Jeremy about this, about their longevity. Still packing out gigs and, yeah, got their own festival, like you say. And he says they've still got a lot to say, so why not?
Okay, so we talked about like, well, you said like my brother bringing their tape back from university and us getting into them. Do you remember the first time we saw them?
Yeah, well, yes, either Brighton Centre or the Heineken Festival.
I'm pretty sure we saw them at the Heineken Festival before we saw them
Yeah,
at
I
the
think you
Brighton
might be
Centre.
right. I think in the interview I said Brighton Centre was the first time, but I think it might have been the other way around.
They're amazing, those Heineken festivals, except
Yeah.
for always when you least expected it, Chumbawamba would
Chumbawamba.
pop up.
Yeah.
Like it must have been like 3 or 4 times I was waiting for something, and then they just come on with a bang in their pots or whatever
Yeah.
they did. Oh man,
There was a band
Tops.
called Dr. Fibes and the Wax something equation or something that were quite good.
that sounds right. Yeah,
But yeah, it's free.
yeah,
So,
it's free. Yeah.
you know,
It's great.
amazing. You can get that these days.
Do I detect that
I-
you're not a fan of Chumbawamba?
I'm not. I know they were kind of part of the
Hey,
same
they
scene
get
as the
knocked down.
Levelers.
They get knocked down, but they get up again.
I do, and I respect that. I do. No, man, they were literally the most annoying fucking band in the world. Just like that kind of novelty comedy kind of.
They got away with saying.
I couldn't.
They got
stand
away
it.
with saying. Got away with saying pissing in a song, though, didn't
They did. Didn't they throw like a bucket of water over John Prescott?
they? Did, yeah. That was a real sort of anarchistic sort of
Yeah, man.
thing.
I mean that's good. No, that just like seeing them live was just the most like irritating experience.
I agree.
yeah.
I think I didn't really like them either. Dave, did you go to that
Maybe.
festival?
I think I did.
There were
But
like 2 or
must have done.
3 that we went to. There wasn't
Yeah.
just one.
Yeah. I think it was a 3-dayer, the first one. I think we might have gone a couple of days.
I would have said the Levelers Brighton Centre was before, but
You might be
not
right. I mean,
sure.
I've got a pretty
my
bad
memory's
memory. You're
the
probably
worst, I
right.
think, of us.
Not sure, but that
So was that
gig-
your first concert, Dave?
The Levelers 92, yeah, that was.
Yeah. Oh, it
that-
was
definitely
fucking
my
good
first
though,
concert.
right?
He tells his famous nosebleed story in the interview.
Oh man. Well, we can talk about it after, but I loved that story. That's great.
I think Jeremy was impressed.
Might have oversold it.
No,
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 Much
no.
undersold
more
it.
happens than a nosebleed, but
Yeah, don't spoil it. You're doing spoilers
Yeah, man,
again.
it's a teaser. I just have a very clear memory of Neil when they did Battle of the Beanfield and the final cry of bastards. Neil doubled
Can't
up
beat
in
it.
emotion, fist clenched, yelling out. You meant that shit, man.
I talk about it in the interview. It's
You meant it, man. We all did. It's
People-
great.
giving it to the man,
Yeah,
won't we?
yeah.
never been truer.
Bastards.
Bastard.
Yeah.
I think I might have said bastards in the interview, which I regret now because I don't even say
You
bastards.
said it 2 or
normally.
3 times. Yeah.
It should have been bastards.
It's all right. You know what? I was surprised when I was researching it. One Way, which I thought was like their biggest song. I had a One Way long sleeve.
Remember it?
Remember that?
I remember it. I
Yeah,
remember it.
white one with the design, really cool design. That it didn't even make the top 40.
Nah, really?
Apparently, according to
Yeah,
my
I
extensive
think-
research on
I
4 or
think
5
when
websites.
when they're at their biggest amongst the fans, they they weren't really very commercially successful. I don't think.
Right, because they had this core group of fans, right?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
they got quite successful when they released stuff like "Beautiful Day" and that, which was quite a
Yeah.
long time later.
Yeah.
You know,
They
Well,
sort
like
of
yeah,
got
like
subsumed into
Zeitgeist was their
Britpop.
most successful album.
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah,
That was
that's-
Britpop days then.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
that's it. Yeah, it was kind of around
yeah,
then.
it's
But, yeah,
95 by then. Yeah.
but in the early '90s, when we all loved them, yeah, I don't think they were that commercially successful.
Did they have any top 40 hits off Leveling the Land?
Not sure.
Oh, I don't know. What else would there have been from it?
There's that
I don't know.
15 years that wasn't
yeah.
on the
Yeah,
original.
15
I think
years,
that
man.
got
Liberty
added on.
Song, maybe. Yeah, maybe 15 years might have done. Got added on after, I think, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was probably their most successful song from that album. I think I remember that.
Maybe.
But yeah, they weren't massive then, but they were. They had a very.
But they were
big
amongst the
core.
indie kids, right? Like you know, it's a bit, well, I guess like everyone had a Levelers T-shirt, right?
Yeah, and they played in front of 350,000 people at Glastonbury. so,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that's pretty big.
Yeah. I know. For me, I don't know. It did feel important that they were a local band.
That was part of it, wasn't it? That they were from Brighton, and we always claimed we were from Brighton, but we're from Seaford.
Close. As close as. Yeah.
Close enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can I just say I'm not from Seaford, just to correct the record?
Oh, sorry. It's all right
How
to use our
different.
school when you need it, though, isn't it? All right to use our schools when you need it,
Yeah, well, had to.
eh?
Oh.
And
Shots
Seaford
fired.
Heads came in handy for you.
It felt like being in a band was something that was possible, right? Having a local band like that. It's cool.
Yeah, I think that was part of it, that they were local. And they named the band after the level in Brighton. So
I'm not sure he's completely wrong.
If he's right, I will eat my hat. There
Like
you
Paddy
go.
Ashdown.
Paddy Pants down.
Anyway,
Okay. Should we listen to the interview?
yeah, I mean, just a bit of a teaser, just something to look out for.
Here we
Neil,
go. One of Dave's famous teasers.
Yeah, Neil did
Teaser
a
or
bit of
spoiler?
Rick from Rick and Morty did a bit of burping as he asked the question.
Did I?
Yeah, you just got to listen out for that. It's classic. I guess it was a bit of luck, really, going to cover quite a lot of subjects.
Yeah, no, he's a really nice guy.
So I enjoyed listening back to it because it's been a couple of months since we recorded it. But
Just fucking introduce it then.
You're
Here
doing
it
the
is.
post stuff, dude.
here it is, enjoy it.
Jeremy, thanks for coming on the podcast. You keeping busy?
Yes, no, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, no, I've been very busy. You know, I've been painting a lot, basically. You know, since
Yeah, you're touring at the moment, or you've just come off tour, have you?
we just finished a tour, an acoustic tour,
Yeah.
about 2 weeks ago, or a bit less than 2 weeks ago, and yeah, that all went really well. And so yeah, I've been, you know, and when I'm at home, is all I'm doing is, you know, I'm in my art room usually,
Yeah.
and you know, my levelers stuff, or I'm doing my own thing.
Where are you based now?
Brighton.
Oh, you're still in Brighton? Dave thought you'd moved to Devon for some reason, but
Yeah,
No.
I thought
Oh,
on the website it was Devon.
no, John, our violin player, he moved to Devon.
okay. I think what would be a good place to start is obviously there's probably not many people listening to this or watching this that don't know, but if you can just sort of give us a bit of a rundown of how the Levelers came to be. Were you all in bands before, or?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'd been in a couple of bands. Charlie, our drummer, had been in loads of bands in London, and I basically met Charlie, the drummer. He's I moved into a house, and his girlfriend lived next door,
Yeah.
so he would him quite often because I was friends with her as well, and kind of got to know him. Eventually, I joined the band that he was in at the time. And then I met Mark, basically. I met Mark, the singer of the band.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to get off with his girlfriend. And then he turned up, and I'm like, oh, shit, he's loads better looking than me. He's like, oh, never mind.
I can't.
And we got talking and just really hit it off. And so that was pretty much the start of the band. That was me and Mark and Charlie.
Right.
That was. And then Mark knew John, violin player, and and that was it. That was it. You know, we knew we didn't want. We knew we wanted a lead instrument, but we didn't want a lead guitar. You know, we wanted something that was a bit different. We didn't want
so the violin was like a conscious choice to sort of have something different from a.
Yeah, we wanted a lead, interesting instrument that wasn't the guitar. You know, we didn't like guitar solos and all those histrionic, you know, type things.
What about the didgeridoo? Did that come a bit later?
No, that came right at the start. That was that because when we formed, it was the year after the great, you know, the so-called Great Storm.
Oh, 87. I remember it.
87, yeah.
Yeah, knocked down all the trees.
Yeah,
and they were still down. And Mark and I had both, quite by chance, been to a gig that year. Before we knew each other, we'd both ended up in the same place watching this guy who was a didgeridoo player.
right.
And he was playing really loud, like PA system with all these effects on, and it just sounded amazing. And so, so when Mark and I we had this idea that we would use some of these tree branches and make didgeridoos ourselves.
Did you make them?
You what?
Did you make the didgeridoos?
We started.
It's not easy, is it?
It's not well. What we were going to do was we got the branches and we cut them in half, and then we were going to hollow them out and stick them back together again. And we cut them in half, and they just warped like instantly. So, and then we found out that's not the way to make them. Anyway, you know, you can't cut them in half. It's got to be, you know, the original way is to get termites to bore them out.
Is it?
But that's how they did it with termites. But you know, in modern times they just route out the middle. But you know, we didn't have that technology. And then, but then it turned out, you know, another thing. You know, Mark knew Stephen, the didge player, so we got him quite early doors to play a couple of songs.
Yeah, what were the first gigs like? Were they in Brighton? Obviously, where were you playing?
First gig we did was at a place called the Basement, which was as part of and we were actually supporting a band that had come down from London.
Yeah,
and I just put up loads of posters. Me and Mark, we always used to go, the whole band went out fly posting in those days.
Yeah.
And so it was absolutely rammed, you know, we couldn't believe it. The venue was absolutely sold out, full.
Yeah.
People see us basically because they liked the artwork on the poster.
Ah, brilliant. And, we're going to come on to the artwork a bit later on, but yeah.
And we only had seven. We only had 7 songs, so we had to play a few of them twice, you know.
Yeah.
John didn't have any kind of, you know, none of us, including him, had no idea how to amplify a violin. And so he got a pickup from an old Fender copy guitar and like gaffered that on underneath his
So it's all real sort of DIY. That's incredible.
Oh, it's totally DIY, yeah.
Yeah.
And it probably sounded horrendous, but we all jumped up and down, had a good time, and the audience did the same. And so after that in Brighton, all our gigs have sold out right from the start. Really, it was.
Oh, so
it was only when we started to further around the country that we started playing to like 2 and 3 people, like everyone else does.
Yeah. How did that come about? Was it just literally just sort of get in a van and just go play sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, luckily, again, one of the people we knew was really interested in, becoming a manager, and he already ran a local record label,
Yeah.
And he offered to manage us, and so he got us quite a few shows. In fact, he managed us right through till, he managed us for about 10 years.
Oh, really? Is that true at all? So, I mean, how did Blind Faith come about? Did you get a record deal fairly early on? Or?
Well, no, really. We brought out our own first 2 singles.
Yeah.
On our own. Well, our manager's label, which is called Hag.
Yeah.
And he put out a couple of records by local bands on it, and so we self-financed our first 2 EPs.
Yeah.
After that, we got signed.
So it was pretty quick sort of process from sort of starting out to having gigs rammed and then getting signed, sort of thing.
It was a lot of bands who have to really, work hard. I mean, we do have to work hard outside of Brighton, admittedly, but
yeah,
it was quite quick, I suppose. It was only a couple of years till we got our first album, and it was it's 2.5 years till we could sign off the Dole, basically, which is just like the best thing ever.
Oh yeah, amazing. I guess sort of if you're gonna start a band, then especially sort of around that sort of era, Brighton was probably the place to do it, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there was a really good scene in Brighton for bands,
Yeah.
but we all moaned that it was really hard getting in any of the music press because they never got paid to come down to Brighton because it was too close to London. So they get paid expenses to go up to Manchester, Edinburgh, Glasgow, wherever, but to come to Brighton, they didn't. There wasn't much incentive for it.
That's weird, eh? Even though it's just down the road, sort of thing. It just didn't bother.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. That's the problem. We wouldn't get any expenses for it. It was only until basically one of the journalists from Sounds or Enemy or one of them moved to Brighton, and he suddenly realised there was this whole kind of scene going on, and that's when we started getting a little bit of a sniff of press and gigs played in London and stuff.
I mean, was it difficult to get sort of, because obviously your music was a little bit different? Was it quite difficult to get your music out there, sort of thing?
What, in the press?
Well, I guess it was all sort of indie music at the time, wasn't it? So to break through in that scene must have been quite, well, not difficult, but
we weren't really a part of it. We were to in squats and on traveller sites and stuff like that. Yeah. But we did all that. But then we also played in a lot of universities on the university circuit as well.
Right.
And that time we really came into contact with the kind of indie scene.
Yeah, I tell you what, that's interesting actually, because that's how me and Luke, he's the other guy on the podcast. He's not here today. His brother came back from university with Blind Faith, and he said, "Listen to this." I saw him at uni, and they were incredible. And that's how, even though we're from sort of down the road, we're all from Seaford. Do you know Seaford?
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, we found out
Sheffield, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was at Sheffield Uni, and he come back with the CD. It's like, yeah, have a listen to this. I think they're from Brighton. I'm like, yeah, nice.
We did a few good gigs at Sheffield Uni. I remember them, but that was the thing, because the legend of the band is everyone knows that we played all the traveller sites and the squats and the free festivals and everything.
Yeah.
But the less known part is all the hundreds of student gigs we did to like 3 pissed people, on a Wednesday night. But having said that, every time we came back, there'd be more people, more and more and more, and slowly that student audience, it slowly grew and grew and grew.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
and like one year, the
records
guys we'd been playing to seemed to, they obviously left. That whole group of people left university, say in 1990, and then they started coming to see us, paid gigs in normal venues, and suddenly we were playing to like 1,000, 1,500 people with no record deal, and no one had really ever heard of us. We came completely out of the left field.
I guess the good thing about uni gigs is people go to uni and then they go back home, don't they? So then they take their music with them, and it just spreads, right?
That's exactly what happened to us.
Yeah.
I mean, those first records you brought out yourself, how did you distribute them, or was it just a few? Could you only sort of
sell them at gigs?
Yeah,
we sold gigs. We brought out tapes, cassette tapes.
Yeah, cassettes, yeah.
Demo tape, two demo tapes, and then we did our first 12-inch, and I think we pressed like 500 or something like that, and we sold them through Rounder Records in Brighton, and we made T-shirts on our kitchen table, sold them through Round, and a couple of other indie shops that aren't there anymore.
Oh, did you say Rounder Records? Was it?
Yeah.
I remember Rounder Records. Yeah,
they were all good to us, and we were amazed. We gave them tapes, and people bought them. We couldn't believe it. It's like, well, people actually want to buy these things. So we actually ended up repressing the record a few times, and then we got distribution through. I can't remember the name of the company now. Big company, indie distributor. Oh, who were the Libertines signed to?
Oh,
Rough Trade was.
Yeah.
Rough Trade. They distributed our first two self-done EPs, basically. Eventually.
Yeah. Do you still have original copies of those on?
I don't know. I don't. I think we did an archive. We did an archive, but I'm not sure if we got proper originals. We've got repress. I think we do though. We must have them, somewhere. But I'd like to think it.
Going back to the Travellers scene. Obviously, that was quite a big. Like you say, I think a lot of people that's what you were sort of associated with at the time. But that was that quite a big part of what you did around the early days?
Because I'm in a bus, on a van, in a truck,
Right. So you lived it.
Yeah, it's quite a big thing for me. But we were all kind of hovering around that scene anyway, because in those days, everyone was squatting because it was easy in those days, and you didn't have any money. It was like you could get 3 months, 4 months in a reasonable kind of house before you got evicted.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people were doing it, and it wasn't like it's not wasn't impossible like it is now. Really hard and really illegal. In those days it was illegal, but it was like law kind of turned a blind eye to
get away with it, sort of thing.
Yeah. But there was this whole kind of DIY kind of punk kind of scene, and that was what we were part of. We were instead of being part of the indie scene, that are in all the music papers, we were part of like a kind of DIY punk scene. It was all bands making different types of music, but all saying a very similar thing with the very outlook. And our kind of paper magazines were like fanzines and stuff like that.
Yeah. So when did it kind of start blowing up for you guys then? Was it after sort of you were playing those uni gigs? Is that when? And then obviously
it kind of all came together because all the guys seemed to leave university that year and come to see us in normal venues.
Yeah.
And we did a support slot with New Model Army on their big UK tour in 1990. And that just kind of exploded our audience as well.
Yeah.
We as soon as we finished that, we went out on our own kind of little club tour for months, basically.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the next year, we got Simon Moran from SJM picked us up, to do proper, big shows. Took a risk on us basically. We were one of the bands he ever signed up. So
yeah. See, I'm going to take you back, Jeremy, to December the 21st, 1992. Do you remember it?
December 1st.
December the 21st, 1992. Basically, that was the first gig that we went to of the Levers, and that was at the Brighton Centre. It was a big gig.
Brighton.
It was
Yeah.
yeah, it was huge.
My first
Yeah.
ever gig, I think.
Oh, that was a great gig. That was like hometown
Yeah.
show.
It was just at the
And that's
peak of leveling the land, and it was you know it was
Yeah.
it was
That's
big.
like the big Brighton. And so, we'd done the smallest gig in Brighton to the biggest gig in Brighton.
Yeah,
So it was like
I was just
the
before Christmas. Everyone was on a high. It was just an epic gig. I
big
think.
moment. We'd just done 2 nights at the NEC in Birmingham,
Yeah.
which is huge as well. And yeah, then to come and do that hometown show was, it's pretty moving. I think my mum and dad might have that.
Oh, really? I bet that's a nice touch. But no, it was an epic gig. I mean, Dave's got a good story about that gig, haven't you, Dave?
Well, I'm not trying to blame anyone, but from that gig onwards, I started getting nosebleeds. And I think it was because, I saw everyone around me headbanging and just jumping up and down, and I was trying to do the same. And then, a little while after that, got a nosebleed, and they kept coming. I had to get my nose cauterized in the end.
Yeah, yeah. One of my friends had the same thing. He had to have his nose cauterized. Anyway, I apologise for that.
No, if it was just too good, I guess. Yeah.
Too much jumping up and
So
jumping up and down.
do you remember a festival? We were trying to rack our brains about it. Do you remember a little festival? It was in Brighton, but I think they had it in a few other places. The Heineken Festival. It's like a free festival. They had it at Stammer Park. Do you remember that one? I think Chumbawamba played as well.
Yeah,
I remember that being
remember
a good gig as well.
Yeah, that was great. Wasn't it free as well?
Yeah, it's free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heineken put it on. It was. I don't know. I wouldn't do that now. I don't think. But
No, we did it a couple of times. We did it a couple of places. We did it in Brighton and we did one in Nottingham.
that's right. Yeah.
It was good because we were at that time we were running in songs for leveling the land around that time. So
I mean, we loved
we were
it. We couldn't believe it when we saw that it was free festival, levelers playing. We were like, "What? What's this all about?" But yeah, it was amazing, right?
that was a win-win for everyone because all the bands got paid, and it was a free festival, so it was like happy days.
Yeah. No, it was a good one. Talking about festivals, this is something that I've wanted to ask. This is the question that I really want to find out about. Is Glastonbury? You still got the record for the highest attendance, right? That's never going to be broken now, is it? 300,000, is that right?
I think it's 350 or something, but
That must.
it won't. I mean, it's not likely to be broken because of the health and safety now.
No, that's it. It's not going to happen with all the fences and all that, everything else involved.
It was only that it only got that big because of people were climbing over the fence and stuff,
Yeah, oh yeah, it was totally just because people broke in basically, but that's all right. But I mean, what was that like? That must have been pretty special.
I mean, we
right?
at the time that it was the biggest one, but I mean, and at that point, it was big. It's a big deal for us. We were, but we I don't know. It was one of those gigs, right, when we'd been on tour for a bit before, so we were nicely played in. And usually, you jump on stage, and within the first couple of minutes, you can kind of tell which way it's going to go. If it sounds good on stage, or if your engineer's got to work a little bit. If you perform a bit more, or whatever, you can usually tell within 2 or 3 minutes. And that one, I remember jumping on stage, and in 2 minutes, I was like, "Yeah, we fucking got this. This is going to be, we're just going to have this, and it was, and thankfully we did play really well.
Did it feel big at the time? Like when you looked out, did you think, "Fucking hell, there's a lot of people here"?
Yeah, I did, but at that point, we're so used to playing massive festivals.
Yeah.
I wish I'd kind of enjoyed it a bit more like that, taken it in more because I got a bit blasé towards it all.
Yeah.
By then, because before that we'd done we'd done a free festival in Germany,
Right.
like 250,000 people, was like as far as you could see, you know. And
Okay, so you're used to those sort of crowds.
I wouldn't say used to, but I mean, it was still a big deal to do Glastonbury, to headline Glastonbury Saturday night, and
yeah, right. That in itself is pretty special, right?
yeah, it was all a bit of a blur, to be honest with you, but it was, you know, it was, I remember it being really good and being well pleased with it.
Yeah, yeah, rightly so. Now we're not going to go too much into this, but the music, it obviously was, a lot of it was based around political, social issues, sort of thing. Was that something that you consciously wrote about, or was it just was it sort of just organically how it happened, sort of thing?
The both, you know, when we started the band, the kind of whole reason for starting it, like Mark and I, when we met, we'd both kind of given up music. We were like, fuck it. You know, I don't want to be in this music scene is filthy.
Oh, you'd already given up.
Yeah. I was trying to sell him my guitar as part of trying to get off with his girlfriend. I was trying to sell him my guitar. I'd just been in Morocco for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anywhere to live. I'd been kicked off the dole and I didn't have any money. So I was trying to sell him my guitar, and he didn't have any money either. So that was a dead loss. But anyway, talking, and I knew he was a singer because I'd seen him busking around, and we just got talking, and I was like, oh, the only thing that could get me into a band would be to have something I believe in, you know, to be part of actually believe in, instead of just playing someone. And he said, oh, you know, I've written a couple of songs, and he kind of showed me the lyrics, and I was like, oh, that's good, you know, that's saying something. And he said, oh, well, I'll come over to yours tomorrow and we can play them, you know. So he basically came over to my place and played me a couple of songs, and then we wrote one together, you know, there and then, because I write some lyrics. I don't write any music or anything, but I write some of the Levelers lyrics.
Yeah.
And that was it. But that was the thing. We wanted something that was basically honest and that we could get behind. You know, that was all. That was it, really.
Hey, it's important, isn't it? If you're in a band, I think if you've got a little bit of a platform, then it's good to use it. I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And did you have any sort of political goals then, or was it just really about making music with a good message?
World. We had big we want to change the world. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and we tried really hard, you know, like we brought out the White Book, which was, you know, before the days of the internet, you know, and after the poll tax had all kicked off, you know, and there's another story in there. We were followed by MI6 for like months after the poll tax riots.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. Because they found loads of fires on people they'd arrested. Because we were doing a gig. We were doing a gig at a squat in London directly after that.
So it was your fault. You'd incited the riots, right?
Well, yeah, but they thought, oh, who's this, you know, lot, and and they followed us around for quite a little while till they realised that we weren't as massive a threat as they thought we were.
See, I believe that because they're just so ridiculous, aren't they? Like they just grab onto something and then run with it, even though it's like,
you know, they'd never heard of us. They saw this kind of subversive-looking artwork, and it was on everybody that they'd nicked. You know, a lot of people they'd nicked had these flyers in their pockets. But after that, we did this thing called the White Book, which was basically doing what the internet does now. We basically published a book that had every kind of protest group, like, or Hunt Sabs, or anyone who was like counterculture that wanted to have their address, their contact number in there so they could network with each other. We put it there and published it because we were like, you know, if everyone could get together, then, you know, we could really affect some kind of change, you know, because at that point, they're playing to like thousands of people every night. And we basically did this book. People got in touch with each other and they just fucking argued.
So it didn't have the desired effect.
No.
That's the trouble with the left, isn't it?
Left wing
argue with each other.
Yeah.
The
if the left didn't argue with each other, we'd be all right.
Yeah,
You know?
the left we argued with each other about the tiny details,
Yeah,
whilst the right fucking got on with it.
yeah, that's it. But you
But we
say
tried.
yeah, you say you wanted to change the world. Luke wanted to say actually that you basically got him interested in politics at the time. Well, all of us really, but he's still. I know it's not your song, but you covered it. He's still got the lyrics to Subvert on his office
Yeah,
door.
right.
He's there every day. He loves it. He loves the whole ethos behind it. But
I
yeah,
met a guy kind of, well, not met, but I met, got someone on a guy on Instagram who's a barrister who does like murder cases at the Old Bailey,
yeah.
and he just got some award this year for being the best of barrister or something, and he sent me a little message saying, oh, thanks to the Levelers, because that's what got me into wanting to defend people's rights,
There you
to
go. Yeah,
fight for justice. And I was like, that really moved me, because I was
yeah. I
like,
mean,
wow,
that's big, isn't it? It's getting someone to basically change the course of their life for
yeah,
for good.
yeah. And then
That's what
they
it's all
can actually
about.
do proper positive stuff as well, So yeah, that was a very moving thing.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, I think people change the world in small ways, but it's sort of
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, yeah,
in our world. Yeah, I think it got us all interested in. We didn't really know about the traveller movement at all, so you know, I think we all did
yeah,
our own little bits of research on that one.
yeah.
But what is the status of that movement now?
It
Because
kind of went.
sorry.
The one I was involved with just kind of fell apart really after the the Criminal Justice Act made it
Yeah.
really difficult, and a lot of the older guys, the more proactive guys, moved abroad, where the law was made it easier. Went to
Oh,
Spain
really?
and
Portugal, that's a good place, I think.
yeah, yeah, Portugal, some to Ireland, some to Germany, Berlin.
Oh,
But
so
it just kind of,
that bill really did have the desired effect then,
yeah, it took a little while,
unfortunately.
but it did, yeah, and yeah,
Bastards.
and yeah, and so I mean, there still are a few little groups.
Yeah.
I still, some of the old people I knew very occasionally still at it, and there's new guys I think who I don't really know. It's still there underground, like
Yeah,
it
but
was back in the day. So I think maybe it's one of those things that can only be a small underground thing, and as soon as it hit that critical mass with all the rave scene and everything, it
yeah.
just starts to kind of implode with a bit of help from the criminal justice bill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that Battle of the Beanfield is it's a good one, isn't it? It's a good track that.
Thing, if you actually watch the documentary about it and look at
Yeah,
all
I've
the,
seen it. Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, it's crazy, yeah.
But that
And
song really did kind of encapsulate that movement. I think it was
yeah, I
That's
mean, I think
brilliant.
that's important songs we'd ever done. Just a historical,
yeah.
you know, of a cultural statement. I think that's what that it's not our best song, but it's one of the most important in
Yeah, I
art.
think it's one of those where I mean we were just kids, but I think it moved everyone, when everyone's singing that in en masse. It's
Yeah,
especially, the whole
Mm.
shouting bastards and stuff, it
yeah,
really sort of resonates, I think. It's powerful.
it's a tip. Three chords and the truth. That one, isn't it?
Yeah, works though.
Yeah,
So we're just going to talk a little bit about your artwork because do you still
yeah,
do you still do all the artwork for the band or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
do it all?
yeah, yeah. I jealously guard it.
That's good. And that was just organic, I guess.
I don't do some of the internet, just stuff that's out of my control, but anything that actually comes out under Levelers, auspices, then I do it. Like
Yeah,
all the t-shirts, all the record covers, um, not all the live posters because they're done by SJM and DMX
Right,
and people.
yeah.
But I do all the t-shirts and all the album covers basically.
I mean, iconic bits of art, aren't they?
Yeah.
You
I
know,
always
I
really
think,
loved the album covers, but I
yeah,
didn't know that you painted them until researching just for
oh,
today.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I'd never done it for any of the other bands I was in because it takes a lot out of me to do. I mean, I love doing painting and artwork. I mean, I do it all the time, but I find it very exhausting mentally.
yeah,
You know, and I'd always kept it dead separate from any bands I was in before because I never really believed in any of the bands I was in. I was just kind of the hired guns, you know, just doing it for fun. But
yeah,
as soon as I got together, I knew that you know, I had a vision for it. And you know, Mark, our singer, he's not much of an artist, but he's got good vision.
yeah,
You know, so he'll often say to me, "Oh, we should do something like this," and then I'll go and do it.
yeah,
Or what he's so good at, he's good at reining me back because quite often I'll push the artwork a bit too far and it gets a bit too kind of abstract or something, and he'll go, "No, everybody's got to wind your neck in a bit," you know.
I think it's
So
good to have. I think it's good to have someone sort of in the background, sort of just going, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's all right," but maybe you could sort of change it.
yeah, yeah, like a record. But it is good, you know, the level of stuff because it's got to be. It's all about communicating ideas. People have got to understand it. You know, it's got to be
Yeah,
simple, easy to understand, and easy to copy. So in the early days, that was our kind of mantra because, you know, by people copying your artwork, that's how you get the name of the band around,
yeah, right.
you know. And to this day, I don't copyright anything. So all of our artwork, anyone can copy it. Don't have to ask us permission or pay for it.
It's
Just do it, you
interesting.
know.
Why is that? Why haven't you copyrighted it?
Good
Just
publicity, I think. It's all good publicity for the band, you know.
fair enough. Yeah. Did you have to run the artwork by record labels and stuff? Or would you say this is it, take it or leave it, sort of thing?
Um, Technically, I did have to. When we, I know, the indie label we were on for quite a few years, but I'd never had any problem. You know, I'd always give them the artwork, and they'd always just go, "Yeah, all right." And
Yeah,
yeah, I never ran into any problems with them. You know, they were pretty good. They were like, you guys have the vision. You know, we don't really understand what you're doing, but you know, we can see you've got some vision. It's going to make us a load of money." So they were quite happy to go with our vision,
well,
basically.
it seems silly not to really. If someone in the band is creating amazing artwork that sort of encapsulates what you're doing, then it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Really, I think.
It was nice actually because I remember one day the record company boss when I did the cover for Leveling the Land,
Yeah,
and it was on the 12-inch on the, you know, the 12-inch album cover, and he was looking at it and he was going, "Oh, this is what I don't like about CDs, which were just coming in at that time." And he was like, you know, having to shrink everything down, you know, to quarter
yeah,
that
right.
size. You know,
I
he was
mean,
going like, so,
so that's
but
great.
yeah,
The whole vinyl revival is great for your artwork as well, isn't it? The people are
I,
buying the vinyl again and getting to see it in its
yeah,
you know full
yeah, it's
form.
great. It always looks
Yeah,
better that place, you know, for sure.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Have you ever had like an art exhibition of your work in
Yeah.
Brighton?
Not in Brighton, but I just had one in Norwich, actually, funny enough. I just, an exhibition of my painting, not leveler stuff, just my own, you know,
Yeah,
painting. Yeah, just finished about a month ago. That was on for a month. That was really good. Went really well.
yeah, that's good.
Is
Well,
I
that
was
kind of
quite,
your main occupation now? Is the art, or is it
yeah.
still the
If I'm not,
levelers?
oh, it's still levelers. Yeah, it's still levelers. But if you know, if I'm not playing with the band, then I'm scribbling away in my little art room I've got in the Metway.
why do you think? What do you think it is about the levelers that because you've got longevity, right? You're still selling out gigs, you're still making albums. What's how's it sort of a lot of bands have from that era have done their thing and drifted off. How comes you guys are still there?
Think, you know, partly we still get on. You know, we're kind of friends.
Yeah,
Partly we still have that driven thing where we don't feel like we haven't said everything we've got to say yet.
Yeah.
And partly we're kind of aware that the noise we make is bigger than the sum of its parts, you know, so it kind of needs all of us to make it, and it's quite a special noise, you know. There's nothing quite like sitting in a room full of people playing and that level of noise comes out. It's like there's something about it that is.
I agree. I mean, been to a few level gigs in the last couple of years, and it's the same sort of buzz as when you go when you're a little kid, you know, when you're a teenager. It's still there's still that community,
I'm
I guess.
glad to hear that, because we still get the same buzz, so I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's still the case. Definitely think so. I've got a few questions from some people in our Facebook group, if you don't mind. So this one's from Phil Linus. We've kind of we touched on Glastonbury, but he says, how do you feel about how commercial Glastonbury's become? Now, we were talking about this earlier, and we don't think it's overly commercial, but it's a lot more expensive, I think.
Bill Linnet.
Well, Phil Linus, but you know, it's not far off, is it? That would be good.
That'd be good. Glass, yeah, it's very big, isn't it? It's very big and very expensive.
Do you still go, or?
No, well, no, not really.
No.
Not since last kind of played there, but
Yeah.
But you know, as far as festivals go, it still does. It still feels like old school Glastonbury.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's still quite magical, right? It's not like completely lost its way.
No, it's still. That's why people still love it and still go to it, because it has got that. It's got that vibe, but it is genuinely run by people that do genuinely care about it, you know. So,
yeah, I think so.
And yeah, and if you go up to like the Greenfield areas, you know, the more kind of alternative areas, it's still like it was back in the day, really.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
It's just really expensive.
Yeah, it's really expensive. It's really hard to get into.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You've got to sit on your computers for a day to get tickets, haven't you now? So
yeah.
I've got another.
There's being let in under the fence by a Rasta charging you 20 quid.
See, yeah, you stopped that in 1994, I think, right?
Well,
that was your fault.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
What was that like?
They did fence after that, didn't they?
Yeah, was that quite standard up to those years? Was that sort of crowd 300,000? That's a lot of people. Was that what Glastonbury was like? Just that many people? Or was that year particularly sort of riotous?
I think that was a peak. I think that was a peak year, but it was always big. It's always bigger than what it was supposed to be.
Always people getting in, sort of, that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean, 300,000. That's like the whole of Brighton, isn't it? In there.
Yeah, crazy. Have you seen video of it and stuff?
Yeah,
it does look
crazy, man. It's just people. It's just people, like as far as you can see.
Yeah. Just hanging. I just remember people hanging out of trees and hanging off of them, climbing up the mixing desk tower, and bodies everywhere, basically. And we actually arrived. We were kind of blown away, because coming in, like driving in on our bus, because we came from another gig somewhere, you know, like Roskilde or somewhere like that. Yeah. And it's all we see was people wearing levelers shirts, like every other person, as we were driving in, and we were like, oh, yeah, pressure's on.
Yeah, no, it must have been an incredible night for sure. I've got a question here from Alicia Wright. It is quite long, so you're going to have to bear with me on this one, I'm afraid. I'm going to have to read it off of this. Right, here we go. So, is your lifestyle and the band's lifestyle more conventional these days? Do you all have regular homes with dishwashers, for example? Do you think that falling into these kinds of comfortable trappings of modern life are an inevitable part of growing older?
Yeah, probably. And all of it. Yeah. all of us live pretty conventional lives. You know, I mean, I remember when I got rid of my truck that I lived in,
Yeah.
and I basically, first of all, my mum was moaning at me all the time about it because this is the days before any kind of communication, and she just didn't know where I was, and she was always like, "Well, where are you going to be?" But I was getting fed up with coming back from a gig and then not knowing where my home was going to be because it had been on,
Yeah.
you know, and then have to drive it somewhere else, so then I'd have to try and find her,
Yeah.
you know, using word of mouth, and then eventually pages, and so
I
eventually
had a
when
page. I remember them.
yeah, and then eventually when I split up with her, I went, "Oh, that's it. I'm going to go and just have a normal flat, basically." And
Yeah.
that was about 94, I think. So
Yeah.
I've just been in a normal, just been in a flat since then. Same, pretty much the same one.
Are you all still in Brighton, are you? Most of the is
No,
Mark still in Brighton, is he, or
Mark is just outside in Lewis.
oh, Lewis, right?
Um,
Yeah.
I'm in Brighton. Charlie's in Brighton. Matt's just outside in Hurstpier Point. John's down in Devon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brighton's all right though, isn't it? It's
yeah. I love Brighton. Brighton's been good to me. You know, I'm from Crawley originally. So I
oh yeah.
absolutely love Brighton.
I know, yeah, Crawley's all right, but yeah, Brighton's nice.
Yeah.
Just a couple. We're not going to keep you too much longer, mate. I appreciate we've taken a lot of your time already. Do you have a favourite Levers album?
Oh, yeah. The first one,
Blind Faith.
Weapon Called the Word. It's
Well,
called Blind Faith.
Blind Faith's the song. That's my stupid. Yeah, Weapon Called the Word.
That's probably still my favourite, just because the memories it brings back. I think there's some killer arranging on it as well that we just did because we didn't know what we were doing, and we just hit on some genius moments without realizing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing about that, just yeah, just I really like
England's
that.
in my home. That's on that album, isn't it?
Sorry?
England, my home. Is that what
Yeah,
it's called?
yeah, that's probably my favourite level of song. That one, I
Ah,
think
there you
that's
go.
kind of we kind of
Yeah, I
stand for
really
it
like that one.
kind of song. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
so
great
that was
album. I guess that's the album that you would have sort of toured before it all went bonkers, right?
yeah, just as it was going bonkers, but a little bit
Yeah.
before, and as
Yeah,
then we kind of
yeah,
did
because
leveling the level.
I mean, as we spoke to Ben from the Senseless Things. Do you remember the Senseless Things, right?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
because we used to
Yeah,
go, you know.
he said the same thing. Their first album, it wasn't necessarily their biggest, but
Mm,
you got a lifetime to put into that first album, and then you got like a
mm,
year to put into the next one, sort of thing. So
yeah,
the first album is full of a life's work, I guess. That's
yeah,
the same thing he said. But no, yeah, that yeah, Weapon Called the Word. I remember. I think when we were all at school, that album was going round, and yeah,
Mm.
because it was
yeah,
round at the time everyone was listening to Neds Atomic Dustbin and stuff like that, and then
yeah,
people had
yeah.
copies of
One
that going
stuff.
around. Yeah, all of that. But right, one last question, then we'll let you go. And this is like a question we ask everyone, but if you could have been in any other band at the time, who would it have been and why?
Oh, at the time,
Yeah, around the early
Could it
90s.
be any time, perhaps?
Well, it can be any time. Why not? Any time.
well, that's a tricky one, isn't it?
Wow.
Any time.
Or did you just always want to be in the Levelers? That's fine.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would have to say that, but I'd have loved to. I'd have loved to have been in the Clash, because the Clash has
Right, there you go.
made me pick up a guitar in the first place.
Oh,
Seeing the on a TV show, like a children's Saturday morning TV show,
yeah.
and
So we
then
didn't really talk about your influences. So that's what sort of got you into music, was it? Watching the Clash.
yeah, Summer did an interview afterwards, sat down with the guys, and he was basically going, well, anybody can do what we do, just get a guitar and do it, which isn't entirely true. But but I was like, well, if anybody can do it, I'm going to do it. I want a piece of that, you know.
Yeah.
And so my sister had an old acoustic guitar that she had tried to learn and got bored with, so I just grabbed that from her bedroom and locked myself away for years learning it.
There you go. And the rest is history. Well,
They say.
I think we'll leave it there because, like I say, we've taken up a lot of your time. But I just want you to know, like, we've got a Facebook group, and there's a lot of love in there for you. So
Very kind.
I think that goes a long way. Yeah.
Yes. Nice to know. Thank you very much.
So yeah,
Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, I do Instagram, but that's just to show my paintings on, really.
I think people have just met you over the years at gigs and stuff, and they just all say what a lovely guy you are. So, you know,
Very kind.
just keep doing what you do, and yeah, I wish you all the success with everything else.
Thank you very much.
So there we go, Jeremy Cunningham from the Levelers. Luke, you weren't in the interview, but you've watched the interview.
Well, really good interview, gentlemen. Well
Thank
done. Really enjoyed it. You covered a lot of stuff, right? So it was. I found it really interesting.
Yeah. He's a really easy guy to talk to.
That's the first thing that struck me. He seemed like really kind of warm and genuine, like no kind of angle to him or kind of. He seemed like a true artist. You know, he could not be doing anything else in his life. That guy. He just seemed like a genuine person. You know.
Yeah, and I said this to him in the interview. Like, people were sort of commenting in the Facebook group about meeting him and that, and he's apparently just a really nice guy. I think I seem to remember when he used to say hello to people in Brighton all the time when he was just sort of walking around. I'm pretty sure we saw him a couple of times. He's just a nice guy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
really down to
seemed
earth.
like a really genuine. That really came across in interviews to a really genuine kind of warm guy.
Yeah.
You know? Which is great.
Yeah.
Things that jumped out at me. The point about the university circuit was really, really interesting. I hadn't considered that at all, and you pointed it out, Neil, the idea of, you know, like people going to university, seeing the Levelers, then coming back to their own hometowns.
And spreading it around.
And so that idea that, you know, they were just playing to like crusties with dogs on strings, you know, in squats, is not true at all. They were playing to middle class university students who had the money to go and buy their records and stuff, and that's how they built their base. And the fact that he was very open about that and aware of it, I thought that was really, really interesting. I hadn't even considered that before, so that was
I think they started off. They had the Traveller angle as well. He said that they used to play on Traveller sites and stuff, but they had this other audience as well that they were building at the same time.
Yeah, that was like the weeknight thing, was just the student gigs
to pay the bills, I guess, right? And then go back to the community that they were part of. And
I don't really understand the concept of a gig in a squat. What's that? I mean, that's just a rehearsal, isn't it?
No, I mean you just play for people in a squat.
It must be a big squat.
Libertines used to do a similar thing, I think. They used to just do gigs in houses and stuff.
Yeah, lots of the
right?
like American.
They just made that up.
Yeah. A lot of the like early grunge bands and stuff. They were playing in like basement parties and stuff. Just stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd never get that now. You wouldn't get that now. I mean, all squats have gone, haven't they? Like we were covering.
Can't do
I guess
anything.
People in England don't have big enough houses for that. I thought it was interesting that they got popular in Brighton really quickly. That kind of suggests that there was like a really supportive, like inclusive scene that was going on in Brighton at that time, which we were kind of too young to be aware of, like late 80s, 88, 89. But that kind of made me happy to know about that.
I mean, I guess there must have been a travelling community around in Brighton as well. For him to be a part of it, so
Brighton's always been a bit kind of bohemian and that kind of thing, so that doesn't surprise me. But I found that was good to know.
What I thought was interesting as well, how he was talking about how I guess this was the same for any band in Brighton, that the music press didn't come down here because it was too close to London. They didn't get expenses paid.
That was really I picked up on that as well.
Yeah.
Those kind of details. I love that kind of shit. That's really interesting. The political stuff I mean, is always interesting for me. So I really liked hearing about that, like the criminal justice bill stuff.
The White Book was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't know anything about that before.
Same, and I did quite a bit of research about it, like making questions and stuff, and I haven't seen it mentioned anywhere.
It was a bit of a failure, I guess. You know, they had this goal and vision, but the reality.
Dave was saying the left always fucks up things for the left. You know.
Yeah, that was interesting. He said, they got in contact with each other and argued.
Argued about it. Yeah. But the idea was good, and the fact that they did that just shows how into that movement they were, right?
Yeah, totally. It shows how committed they were to it. Yeah, that's really cool. It's a really cool thing to do, even if it wasn't successful, you know.
Yeah, and I love also what he said about Battle of the Beanfield and how they're really proud of that song. Not necessarily the song itself, well, that is a great song, but the message and the historical context of it all, and it's a fucking good song though. I don't regret shouting bastards and meaning it at that gig in Brighton. Really fucking meant it at the time.
I was reading about that song. I think it was written by the guitarist Simon Friend, and apparently he kind of like had it in like his own set before he joined the Levelers,
right.
And he took it to them and he said, you know, they made it better. Basically, they kind of cut it down and made it better. And
whoever came up with that intro, genius. Those drums and the
ominous sounds. Yeah, man,
fucking
really
brilliant. And then the sirens at the end and all of that. It's just so good. Such a great song.
Yeah. And like Jeremy said, like a really important song. You know, it really documents like, you know, an important moment in time, you know, and it does it like viscerally. It's just really good.
Yeah, I mean the song, basically that song is what happened, like word for word, pretty much, right? So it's an important song.
I would probably put it as my favourite Levelers song. How about you two?
I really like 100 Years of Solitude. I love that song. I don't know why. Just something about it. I always come back to that one. I just think it's a really great song. And it does remind me of that trip to Paynton and those times. So the historical context of it, that's probably my favourite song. Dave?
I think a couple I mentioned in the interview, England, My Home.
You can only have one.
Well, it would be that then. England, I think it's England, My Home, right?
Go on, what was the other one? Then?
Yeah.
That's the one I just had on repeat.
It's a great song.
And Julia as well, I like.
Weapon Called the Word, it is a really good album. Blind Faith's a great song.
It is, yeah.
Well, that's probably why I got obsessed with it and named albums after it.
I mean, they missed a trick. They should have done, right?
Should have called it Blind Faith, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Would have been easier for me.
Yeah. Exactly.
I just think Levelers for us were a really important band when we were growing up. I know I spoke about it with Jeremy in the interview, how Luke, you said it really sort of got you started on your journey into politics and all that sort of thing. I think they were just a really important band for people growing up in those times, you know, to see people, you know, openly talking about political stuff was really important when you're growing up, you know, and that's when you start to stop trusting the government and stuff they're doing, you know, because you don't know about it until someone tells you about it, and then you find out about it, and that's how it works.
We were whatever, 14, 15. Of course, we didn't know, and we'd lived through it as children, but we were kind of sheltered from, like the destruction that Thatcher wrought upon the country,
Yeah, right. 'Cause it was right after that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we were kind of we were kids, but we didn't really know what was going on, So something like documenting something like the Battle of the Beanfield, which happened, like a few years before. I think it was 85, like the actual Battle of the Beanfield. Yeah, it felt really important. And talking about like state oppression, talking about like redistribution of wealth, which now they seem like radical ideas, which they're not, they shouldn't be an extreme stance to take, and it just felt kind of exciting for me. And it definitely got me interested in, finding out a bit more about it in academic sense. And
I thought it was quite interesting.
So, yeah.
When we asked him the question about, because this was a question from someone in the Facebook group, I can't remember who now, but about whether he still sort of lives in a van and has that sort of lifestyle. He doesn't. He's got his own flat and stuff. But I think that's not through choice. I think that's just because it became untenable to live that way because of the criminal justice bill and things like that. But I've no doubt if he still could, he may well do. It's not like he's sold out or anything.
Although I was watching some clips, there's a documentary on the Levellers about 8 or 9 years ago, and I was watching some clips from it in the week, and you do get to see inside his house. It's not a palatial palace, put it that way.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah,
it's a normal kind of terraced house, which were full of his bohemian shit. So it's that's what I mean. Yes, they've got their own houses and stuff, but I've no doubt that they still believe in what they're singing about. I don't think that was. I don't think that was a persona, is what I'm trying to say. I think they definitely believed and lived that way. So, all right, Dave. Any comments before we finish?
No, it's just like you're saying. Faith No More were your favourite band for 2 years. I think for me, my 2-year favourite band's probably the Levellers.
I think I might be with you on that one. I think the Levellers for me were, especially around that time when we went on holiday.
I almost wish I was a little bit older so I could have gone to that gig, that Glastonbury.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been awful though. There's no big screens back in those days. You wouldn't have been able to see anything.
You would have been dying for a piss.
Well, you just go, wouldn't you?
Just piss on someone's
probably
leg.
didn't they?
You can't piss on someone's
everywhere.
Leg. You got the side of the tent or whatever. You can't piss up a leg.
We were so busy. That's probably what happened. They just did it in the field.
In a field, I'm fine with. I even make your way out to the side of the tent and up someone's leg. I'm not accepting that.
When there's 350,000 people, you can't get to a tree.
Okay, it doesn't matter. You don't piss up someone's leg. It's not done.
What else could they have done? But everyone, it was cool, it was part of the scene.
No, everyone did it. Everyone did it back then.
They did not. They did not. I'm not having that.
Dave's saying that it would have been a great gig to go to. It would have been to say you were there, but it's a bit like Nebworth. It's just massive. And
oh man, I love Nebworth.
I did, but it was. But we did have big screens then, so it was a little bit different because you could see what was going on. I don't know. Those massive gigs, they're good in one respect, but they're not. It's not the same as hearing a band in an intimate venue, is it? So I think that gig at the Brighton Centre, if you ask them, it's probably one of their best gigs because, like he says in the interview, it was like a homecoming gig. Levelling the Land was on the up. A good one. As good as
we could have seen them. Yeah, I think you're probably right.
That's it for this episode. If you're watching this, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give it a thumbs up. Leave some comments below. It'd be nice to get some conversations going. Tell us a bit about your Levellers experiences. If you're listening, give the podcast a review. I think that's what you do to get it found.
We've set up a Twitter page recently, so
we have.
Follow us on Twitter. Get on Instagram.
I think it's called X now.
I'll behave. Because it's not. Hey, if you're like us and you got mates that you went to these kind of gigs with when you were teenagers and you haven't spoken to them for a while, hit them up.
On board.
Get them on Facebook. Spread the word. Get them on board. Yeah. Even if you haven't been in contact for a while, hit them up.
We want to start a bit of a nostalgia fest. So, get on board. Bring your mates. And let's all pretend we're teenagers again.
I know, you don't. Why do you pretend you're a teenager again? Don't do that. Those were the days. Carefree.
Pissing on people's legs.
Pissing on people's legs. Didn't have mortgages to worry about. Could just piss on a leg if you wanted to. Halcyon days. Join the Facebook group if you haven't already. It's a nice little community over there. And we'll catch you. It might be our first Wang next time. Yes, it will be. Dave, do your sign off. See you in a minute.